Uh, a very good evening to all of you. Today, we are going to have first session on MS 012, that is ecosystem and natural resources. When we talk about sustainability, as we know, the basic foundation of sustainability is the natural ecosystem. And what we are studying or learning in the subject of sustainability is to understand the dynamic relation between and among different components of nature, that's human, including human itself. So in this course, ecosystem natural resources, we are going to learn about the basic concept of ecosystem, how it's functioning, how it's related to the, how it is related to human society, how this dynamic relation is going on, and the basic foundation of the basic, concept on natural resources in its management in terms of qualitative perspective and quantitative perspective through the lens of sustainability. So today in this session, we are going to learn ecosystem and ecosystem services. And these two terms, it's very frequent to all of you. And here we are going to have a quick look into whatever we have studied, the basic foundation of those concepts on ecosystem and ecosystem services in a brief and in a few minutes only. And it's a compilation of some of the latest publication in this field by different authors. So let's start. When you talk about ecosystem, first we need to understand the term ecology. Ecology is the term derived from two Greek words, oikos and logos. And it was first coined by Ernst Haeckel in 1869. So the meaning of the term is, oikos means house or living place, and logos means study. So if you combine the two terms, the meaning automatically comes a study of a living place, or if you take an as a house, study of house. So when we talk about house or living place, and to study that in a house or a living place, you will find out different components. And then those different components, they interact each other, and that's called relationship. It might be material for mutual benefit, or it may be for other purpose. So that shows that ecology is the study of the interrelationship of organism with their natural environment. Right. So in other words, it is the study of the relationship between, when we say house or living place, there are different components here. You can look into biotic and abiotic component. So it is study of relationship between biotic and abiotic component. Also, the relationship between and among biotic and the biotic component of the ecosystem. Here we will find another term, ecosystem. Let us look into the meaning of that term. E.P. Woodham, one of the famous ecologists, defined ecology is the study of the structure and the function of nature, which includes the living world. And when you study a system, here, when you talk about ecology, we're talking about the living flesh. Then there must be some boundary or some unit to understand those concepts or to understand the interrelationship between or among different components of that system. So from that context, E.P. Woodham referred ecosystem as the basic fundamental unit of ecology. So for practical purpose, when you talk about the study of the relations between or among different components of a system, so it definitely involves collection of information about those different components. Here, about organism and their environment, looking for the pattern of their distribution, abundance, and adaptation of environmental changes, in the sense that when you are talking about the relation, means there must be dynamic relation. That relation explain what kind of pattern exists. So this is what about ecology. Then, when we know that ecosystem is the unit to study the ecology, then what is ecosystem? It is what we explained. It refers to a whole community of an organism and its environment as one unit. This term was coined in 1960 by Roy Cleffam to mean the combined physical and biological components of an environment. But later in 1935, British ecologist Arthur Tansley refined is what we understand today, means it is explaining later on. So in simple word, it can be defined as a piece of land or water body where life continues without the need of human support or intervention. That is what is talking about natural environment, right? It may be a piece of land, it may be water body. Because if you look into the natural system, the member who are in that water body may or may not, majority of them may not survive in other ecosystem like in the terrestrial ecosystem. That's why it can be defined as a piece of land or water body where the life continues without interference of the Homo sapiens, the human with the human. So you can look that, because you can look that as a forest. It may be forest, it may be grassland, pond, lake, coral reef that provide a natural ecosystem. And if you look from the that human intervene or human managed ecosystem, you can say that croplands, which is managed by us, or different farming system, even a pond is defined as an ecosystem. So the simplest level of organization ecosystem is that of an organism, what we see, like an animal, like a plant or microorganism that is inhabiting in that area. So in that, when we are trying to understand the ecosystem, you will find out different members that can be defined as a population, as a community, as an habitat. If you are looking into the broader context, it means that can be looked into the biosphere. Okay, and then what is a population? Population includes all the members of the same organism that live in one place at one time. At one place at one time, right? So all the different populations that live in a particular area where we are going to study, that make a community. And when you talk about the habitat, the physical location of a community that lives, that's called habitat. So if you look into the higher level, then you can define ecosystem, can be defined as a level of organization called biosphere. Because if you tag the whole entire world as an ecosystem. So this is how from population to biosphere are interrelated. You can define ecosystem depending upon how you are going to utilize. So basically we are saying that it is the basic functional unit of biosphere. And here another term, you will find another term which is very, you are going to study when we talk about global sustainability concept, the biome. Biome is a major terrestrial ecosystem of the world with their groups of climates biotic community, that's called biomes. So some of the biomes are tundra, taiga, deciduous forest, tropical rainforest, chaparral, savanna, grassland, and desert. So the extent of those large continuous ecosystem is determined by climatic edaphic factors and the geographic and geomorphic factors. So let us look into one by one. So at last, what we can summarize is ecosystem can be defined as structural. When we talk about that unit where we're going to study the interaction of different members, that should have structural functional unit of a biosphere or segment of natural system. Well-defined structure and function must be there. It should consist what we are talking about different population, means community of living beings, and their environment, their physical environment must be exist here. So both these community and the physical environment are interacting and exchanging material between them with consistent flow of energy across the system. This is the exact definition of ecosystem. If you look structurally, if you visualize, when we understand the definition of ecology and ecosystem as you need to study the ecology, you can visualize that there must be structure. The structure should have consist of a community of living organism with that of a biotic environment. So then the structure should have different function or different hierarchy. So ecosystem, those structures can be described in terms of its component. Trophic organization, how it organized. Population, that we are talking about, species composition. Stratification, hierarchy. Size and scale means boundary. Then boundaries. These are some of the structure that describe the ecosystem structure. Let us quick look into one by one. First, ecosystem components. This is well known. We know from the high school itself, we learn about the environment. The environment consists of biotic and abiotic component. That's so as an ecosystem. Biotic component is, we know, the living beings, including humans, animals, plants, and the microorganisms. Abiotic components, that gives the life to the biotic component. That includes physicochemical entities like the air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil that supports foundation to human being, that support foundation to living being, that gives foundation to plant, the rocks that give soil and the minerals, etc. So how can we look biotic community? Because as a component of ecosystem from a technical point of view when you are trying to understand from the point of sustainability, when you are trying to understand the sustainability in depth. So this biotic community, we are talking about that living beings that can be distinguished into autotroph. Like, that can be autotroph. Autotroph from the Greek words. Auto means self, tropos means feeder. So they are also called as producer, converter, or transducers. Then next is heterotrophs. And they are also called as consumers, which are generally animals feeding on the organisms. Then the heterotrophs also, they can also look as phagotroph, that's the ingest or swallow. So I will not go in detail all this, the meaning, as most of you must have known, but let us have a quick look into. This phagotrophs or heterotrophs can be looked into as a herbivores or the consumer or primary consumer, is they feed directly on plants, then carnivores, then second order consumer, comprise animal which feed on the herbivore animals, then secondary carnivores that feeds on carnivores, means primary consumer, then tertiary carnivores or quaternary consumer that includes animal which feeds on secondary carnivores, include lion, tiger, etc. They are not eaten by any other animals. Then these large carnivores which cannot be preyed upon further are called top carnivores. Then another is saprotrophs that we call as decomposers or reducers. They break down the complex compounds of that matter, because life started, born started at the end, they have to end, means after it is, that matter has to be decomposed. So that process is taken care by saprotrophs. Okay, so these decomposers do not ingest their food like other, consumer. Instead, they secrete digestive enzymes into that and decaying plant or animal that remains to digest to organic material. So those enzymes act upon the complex organic compound of the matter. So this decomposer absorbs part of the decomposition product for their own nourishment, while the remaining substance are added as mineral to the substratum, means mineralization. So this is the ecosystem function process where later on we are going to discuss on. So in that mineralization, it releases minerals and are reused as nutrients by the plant's producer. See that the role played by composure. So in that way, we'll see the food chain in different ecosystem, how primary producer, primary consumer, and secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and the quaternary consumers. This give an example that this will visualize you very easily, understand you very easily what we have talked before. So another component of ecosystem components, abiotic components. What are technically how we have to look into those abiotic components? That can be physicochemical environment of the earth that include different physical entities like, air, water, soil, such as, other conditions such as temperature, light. So this can be further classified into under three categories. One is climatic factor, what that is very important to run the ecosystem and to survive the living organism. That is light, humidity, atmospheric temperature, wind, etc. And the second classification under this abiotic component is the geographic or geomorphic location. Means land topography, slope, aspect, altitude, latitude, etc. And the third is edaphic components or factor that is related to the structure and composition of soil that include organic substances like water, carbon, sulfur, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc., as well as organic substances like protein, lipid, carbohydrates, humic substances, etc. The second one is trophic organization, structure of ecosystem. The second structure we can look is trophic organization. This what we are going to in the first half, what we are going to discuss is what about the basic what we have learned during 10th standard in graduation and high school and higher secondary level. But let us have a quick look into that. Okay, so trophic organization is pattern of food relationship is in an ecosystem is called trophic organization. So it can be graphically represented by means of ecological pyramid, that in terms of numbers, in terms of biomass, or in terms of energy, right? So if you look into this ecological pyramid, that first it can, in terms of number, means that's called pyramid of number. It can be inverted or upward. So here in pyramid of number, you'll find out both type of pyramid. One is upward and there is invert. In upward, you will see if you look into this oak tree, you will find out the forest ecosystem oak, you will find out this number, right? This is pyramid of number. Then this is also one of the example, inverted pyramid. Then another is pyramid of biomass. Upright, both you will get both upright and inverted. I will not explain, as you know. Then energy of pyramid. This you will find out energy of pyramid is always upward, right? This automatically explain because there is another concept, 10% rule, which we are going to explain. That is the region energy. This always have this. So this trophic structure of an ecosystem can also be described in terms of total amount of nutrient or the amount of living material. Here we are suddenly jumping into in this sentence because some of the concept you need to visit or you need to remember. That's why, yeah. So the amount of nutrient in the soil at any given time is referred as standing stat, whereas the amount of living material is called crop. So that's why here, when you look about ecosystem, that pyramid, and the first one need to understand how the food, how this energy energy is transfer from one component to another, or one one component to another, living organisms. So that relationship is called food chain in the food web. So the pattern of eating and being eaten forms a linear chain called food chain, which can always be back to the, producer. It started from the producer. You will see here in this diagram. On the basis of nature, basically two types of food chains are recognized. One is grazing food chains, because first food chain that energy enter is to the from the sun is to plant. So that is how this grazing food chain can look. From living green plant goes to grazing herbivores and to the carnivores in that way. The another is, as we know, that after the death, the plant or animal, that is then decomposition takes place. That kind of food chain is called detritus food chain. Started from detritus or organic matter and goes through a series of saprophytic or decomposer organism. So two basic food chains you will find, we will have to remember, that is grazing food chain and detritus food chain. So both types of food chains are essential for flow of energy and nutrient cycling in ecosystem. In nature, various food chains are linked together form multi-channel pattern or complex network of food relationship that is called food web. Here, this is this is about the food chain and the food web. Okay, this you have already learned, we have you already know, but we need to remember in this time. The another is species species composition and stratification. So when you talk about species, let us have a quick look into what is the concept of a species from scientific point of view. Species are the basic units of classification consisting of a population of series of population of closely related and similar individuals that freely interbreed with one another in natural condition, but not with members of the other species. So it can show different functional states in the ecosystem. A species can show different functional states in ecosystem. They can perform unique function, but many times they also show redundancy. Means one species can perform a different function in an ecosystem. Sometimes two species, of two different species, that they can perform the same function. So here, when we talk about species composition, it is talking about a number of species present in an ecosystem. That sometimes scientifically we call it as species richness. How much richness of that species? Let us have look into it from a very simple logic. Richness means diversity. Species diversity. We also look in terms diversity means diverse, different forms. Whether we can see that. So there's sometimes, on those species, sometimes you will find out some category of species called keystone species, since those species perform critically important role in the ecosystem. If they destroy the entire ecosystem can collapse. For example, take example of bees. If bees is not in the world, then what would happen? There will be no production. So they are one of the keystone species, like bats, that play an important role in pollination. Another is stratification. Stratification means presence of layers, as we call strata, in vertical structure of an ecosystem. You'll find on ecosystem have then you will find that if you look in the plant community, there have shrub, trees, and in trees also different. Stratification is they are depending on their height, different upon their quality. So ecosystem vary in terms of degree of stratification, which is often due to diversity, productivity, and stability of the ecosystem. Okay. The next is size and scale. The size and scale of an ecosystem can vary widely. It is a simple logic, because ecosystem is a functional unit of to study the interaction between living and non-living component. So its size, and scale can vary according to how you are looking into that. There may be very large, such as tropical rainforest, Sahara Desert, or very small, such as even test tube experiment of phytoplankton, or an aquarium tank with plants and fish. If you go to an aquarium in a museum, you will find out they are also ecosystem. So it depends on what kind of how you are studying it, how you are looking that. Depending upon that, you can see different size and scale. So the last one is boundaries. There need to have a specific boundary, but the boundary of ecosystem is not always easy to delineate. You see in this background photos, how can you I mean, clearly define the boundary of an ecosystem. It's not possible. Who's speaking? So different ecosystems are often separated by geographical barriers. So the separation of the boundary of ecosystem is automatically delineated by natural environment. Geographical barriers like desert, mountains, oceans, or are isolated otherwise, like water body like lakes or rivers. So as these boundaries are never easy, ecosystems tend to blend to each other. That's, I mean, we will not go in details. That's we are talking about ecotonal zones and so on. For example, the boundary of a river may seem very clear, but yet those species living here, they sometimes crawl from the, like crocodile, they crawl from the river to bath in the sun. So likewise, the bird can go from water body to the forest. So it depends upon, I mean, how we are looking into. So you cannot easily delineate the boundaries of an ecosystem. So to some extent, and we can look, the whole earth is a single ecosystem. That is what sustainability science is doing. What we're studying is the whole earth is taken as an ecosystem. Then next is ecosystem function. How it functions. Let us quick look into that. So ecosystem, as you know, is a dynamic assemblage of biotic and abiotic components. So they interact with each other and they perform different ecosystem function, all those. So the major functional aspect of ecosystem, that can be in the form of energy flow, that transfer of energy from one trophic level, what we are talking about, that primary consumer to consumer when you're talking about component of ecosystem. So energy from one trophic level to the another. So production, the another next one is another functional aspect is major functional aspect is production. That production is also called as accumulation of biomass by different components of an ecosystem. So here we need to understand the term productivity. So the rate of biomass production by living beings in an ecosystem is called productivity. So the process of production, that product is called productivity. The another function is decomposition, means what we are talking about, that after that, that plant or that animal, that need to be decomposed, they need to be come back to the natural cycle. So that is breaking down of that plants and animals and their excreta into simple compound like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrient. So in that, bacteria and fungi play an important role in that as a decomposer. The another is nutrient cycling, because all the important nutrient has to move from one compartment to another compartment. At last, succession, if you look into the natural way, if it is not disturbed by human, that's the success from one stage to another. That is the sequential changes in the community structure that resulting into establishment of stable climax community. It is in this way how the, life originated and different ecosystem was started. So here you will look into how the flow of matter energy are passing, okay, through the food chain and the food wave. So let us look into detail about ecosystem energy flow. As we know, several studies that suggest that ecosystem generally fix about 3%, even less than less than 3% of the radiant sunlight that enter. In fact, for most ecosystems, the figure is probably less than 1%. There are also other autotrophic organisms. See, in the processes, whatever energy taken by different components in trophic structure. Okay, that they, pass that energy passes from one structure to another, one stage to another. So those energy then flows to the system when organisms are eat each other. That we're talking about food chain and the food web. So the trophic level or feeding level is a way of delineating the position of an organism in the food chain. That is relationship between what our organism eat and what it is being eaten. So here you will see in this way, all the that material and energy are passes. First, sun is the sun energy that is trapped by producer plant. Then some heat energy will be loose. Some will be used. Then after that, or after eaten by the consumer. So in this way, it is that energy and nutrients are flowing from one compartment to another compartment. Right. So when we look into flow of energy, it is the process of carbon-carbon bonds broken. So when the carbon-carbon bonds are broken, energy is released, which can be used by organism. So this energy, the release of energy, that can be used by the organism or sometimes dissipated as a heat. While the energy is flowed through an ecosystem, only portion of the energy available to an organism is actually stored by the organism. See, most of the heat energy, that energy consumed by the organism is dissipated as the heat. So they take only the fraction of the energy what the particular organism consumed it. So this simply means that lower trophic level always contain more total energy than the higher trophic level. As you know, energy does not recycle, but ultimately all energy that is brought to an ecosystem loses as a heat. That's why Lindenman 1942 put forward a 10% law for the transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level. Here you will see, so 10,000 kilocalorie producer, the plant, primary consumer, because 90%, approximately 90% is dissipated, or some of it is used for its own survival. Then only 10% of the plant energy is, received by the primary consumer. Then in that way, 1%, that's 10%, is going on from one trophic level to another trophic level. See, this already explained as no. When this plant outcome 10% low, this is about 10% low. So at this transfer, 80 to 90% of potential energy is dissipated as heat. That's we call dissipation of a second law of thermodynamics. Only 10 to 20% energy is available to the next trophic level. So from that 10 to 20%, then another 80 to 90% will be dissipated. Only 10 to 20% will be available in the next level, trophic level. So that's why 10% law is proposed. So yeah, we need to understand the term ecological energetic, that is energy transformation, which occur within ecosystem are considered in ecological energetic. So you will see the quantity of solar energy entering the Earth's atmosphere is about 15.3 into 10 to the power 8 calories per square meter per year. But the average amount of solar energy, that is per unit area, per unit time, actually available to the autotroph producer. And that's available energy is also depend on their geographical location. So only the photosynthetically active radiation is the energy available to the autotroph. Say this we are discussing. So the energy conserving. So in the process, they conserve some energy, right? So the energy conserving in efficiency for different ecosystem, different organism is different from one organism to another, from one ecosystem to other ecosystem. So the energy conserving efficiency for grassland is about 1.5% and 0.9% for savanna, and 0.81% for mixed forest, 5% for most of the crops, because there and in the crops what we manage, we are trying to trap the energy. That's why 5%. That in sugarcane field 10 to 12%. So in natural system we are not, we never, that is a natural process. But in case of man-managed, where the process of cropping or each, to harvest more energy, that's why 5% energy efficiency is available there. So this ecosystem function, next is this production process, right? In ecosystem, it started from autotrophs, uh, yeah, autotroph. So in the process, what we have seen, the photosynthesis is the first process that taken place to, take the solar energy, so that that energy that can be transferred in different level. So plant take oxygen, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, water from the environment, and produce food in the form of carbohydrate. This accumulation of organic matter by plant is called primary production. Primary production takes place at the producer level. Then heterotroph take it, feed on autotrophs, accumulate biomass in their body. This is called a secondary production. Then the amount of organic matter or biomass produced by an individual organism, population, community, or ecosystem during a given period of time is called productivity. So when you talk about the productivity of an ecosystem, it is the amount of organic matter or biomass produced by that ecosystem. If you are talking about productivity in an organism, that is produced by that organism. So total amount of solar energy converted fixed by energy by that green plant, that is gross primary production. There's gross primary production in the process, plant also needs some energy. So they utilize some of the gross primary production for their maintenance, especially in the respiratory energy loss, and the remainder is called net primary production. That NPP is available is a plant biomass. That is how that plant biomass is transferred to the consumer. This primary production, this net primary production is of very important to study ecology, since it is the energy fixed by plants by converting solar energy into chemical energy or food matter that supports life in other trophic levels. So the first level of energy that enters to the system is the solar energy. That solar energy is converted into usable form of energy by the producer, that is the plants. Let us look, this is the biochemical equation that describes the process of photosynthesis. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 12 molecules of water that gives into, that is water and glucose. Then secondary production, that net quantity of energy transfer stored in the bodies of heterotroph is called secondary production. Then there are some, in that way, in different, the energy is the production is taken place in different trophic level that transform from one trophic level to different trophic level depending upon the ecosystem, depending upon the way of that particular food chain system. Okay. I will not explain this. Most of the things we're talking about is whatever the material transfer and all these things is carbon component, right? That carbon that enters ecosystem grows primary production, accumulate within the ecosystem, return to the atmosphere via respiration or disturbance, or is transported laterally to the other ecosystem. These are the phenomenon is you have already known all this principle, basic principle. So this actually this carbon process this occurs through litter for root exudation, carbon transfer to microbes, and finally transferred to soil organic matter, which is the largest pool of ecosystem carbon, right? So this is carbon cycle, nutrient cycling. The another is nutrient cycling. See, herbivores also remove carbon from plants. This is 10% theory and all this repeatedly. This is explaining in details. I will not go into details. No, you will look into the slide. So this process of carbon cycle, so the last carbon balance of ecosystem, depend not only on the carbon balance of vegetation, but also on the respiration of heterotroph organism that it live or did organic matter, right? So this heterotrophic respiration by microbes and animals converts that organic matter to carbon dioxide, which is lost from the ecosystem to the atmosphere. So this explains. So in this way, finally carbon leaches from the ecosystem. These are the basic foundation, as you know. So leaches from the ecosystem, dissolve in particulate forms, and move literally to the erosion deposition of soil. Then it moves to the in the movement of animals, because when the animal moves from an ecosystem to another ecosystem, for example, in grazing also, if that animal grazes in the particular meadows, then it moves to the another ecosystem, forest ecosystem, then that carbon will be moved on. So the biomass production by plants determined by the amount of energy available to sustain organisms, including humans. We depend entirely depend on the plant production directly, food fiber and food and fiber indirectly because of the critical role of vegetation in all ecosystem process. I want to bring to some this. So this is how production process in ecosystem function. This is production process because that particular in the process of food chain, they transfer all the nutrients from one trophic level to another level. This is how it functions. So you can take that as a nutrient. You can take any example, in terms of carbon, in terms of nutrient, sulfur, nitrogen, any of the nutrients. The another ecosystem function is decomposition. As you know, decomposition is the chemical and physical breakdown of detritus or dead organic matter that results into when it breaks down, that release carbon to the atmosphere, and of nutrients in the form can be used for plant. One is that release carbon, another is then it gives nutrients. This is also what we have talked about nutrient dynamics. So here we talk about the decomposition of that particular that dead material of plant and animal. In the process, it gives out carbon dioxide. So this that I will not decomposition. Okay, so this decomposition result from three types of process with different control and consequence. What are those processes? One is leaching by water that transfers soluble materials away from the composite organic matter into the soil matrix. And these soluble materials are absorbed by organism and react with the mineral phase of the soil or are lost from the system into a solution. Then fragmentation by soil animals, means soil microorganism break the large species of organic matter into smaller ones, which provides a food source for soil animals, means soil organism, create fresh surfaces for microbial colonization. Soil animals also mix decomposed organic matter into the soil. That is fertility of soil. So three important process: leaching, fragmentation, chemical alteration. That is it's primarily consequences of activity of that bacteria and the fungi that give they use enzyme. So although some chemical reaction also occurs spontaneously in the soil without microbial mediation, that is a biotic process. But here some of the chemical alteration also happen due to biotic process by microorganism. So in liter, you will find out primarily compounds that are too large and insoluble to pass through microbial membranes. So that's why microbes secrete exoenzyme, extracellular enzyme into their environment to initiate breakdown of liter. Then when it breaks down, this coenzyme convert macromolecule into soluble product that can be absorbed and metabolized by microbes. And that the consequences of that decomposition gives to mineralization of organic matter into inorganic compounds, like carbon dioxide that release mineral nutrients, that leachage, and water. And the transformation of organic matter into complex organic compounds that are recalcitrant, that are resistant to further microbial background, that will still be there in that process. So in other words, decomposition occurs to meet the energetic and nutritional demand of decomposer organism, not as a community service for the carbon cycle. So the point is that decomposition is not for the carbon cycle. What we're talking about the nutrient cycle, what we're talking about in the process of trophic structure, energy transfer, we talk about the carbon. Most of the time we talk about carbon when we talk about biomass. So here, what it means, decomposition occurs to meet the energetic nutritional demand of decomposer organism, right? So that it can decompose the dead body. Another ecosystem function is in nutrient cycling. It involves the entry of nutrients to the ecosystem. The nutrients comes into the ecosystem, and their internal transfers between plant and soil. Then again, that internal transfer after that will be lost from the ecosystem. Entry to the exit, that is involved in. So nutrient enters ecosystem through how it enters the chemical weathering of rocks, the biological fixation of atmospheric nitrogen, the decomposition of nutrients from the atmosphere in rain, wind blowing particles or gases. So then in case of human managed ecosystem, that is fertilization is an additional input, nutrient input to that system. How internal cycling processes happen in nutrient process? First, this conversion of nutrients from organic to inorganic form. Then chemical reaction that change elements from one ionic form to another. Then biological uptake by the plants and the microorganism, and the exchange of nutrients on surface within the soil matrix. So it is how internal recycling process. Then it enters the internal cycling processes happen, then it will be lost from the ecosystem through leaching, as we talk about, trace gas emission, wind and water erosion, sometimes fire, the removal of material in harvest. This is the intervention by the human or by the herbivorous plant, herbivorous to the plant. So in the process, most of the nitrogen and phosphorus required for plant growth in unmanaged ecosystem is supplied by the decomposition of plant litter and the soil organic matter. So inputs and the output in this ecosystem are a small fraction of the quantity of nutrients that cycle internally. Only this input, it comes, but a small amount, but in internal cycle, it has accumulation happen. But when it goes out, output from that system, that is very small amount of that. So that means it comes a small amount, but internally it produces a large amount, but it goes out in a small amount. So producing relatively close system with conservative nutrient cycles. So due to our human activities, these inputs and output that is related to internal transfer and make the element cycle more open. Like example of the cropping system, what we are doing. We are putting high energy by fertilization. What is the process? input, giving much input, trying to harvest more energy. But in natural cycle, it is not in the case of natural cycle. It comes very small amount and it accumulates amount internally, it accumulates, but it gives out a small fraction. Okay. They are important. You will see different pattern of biogeochemical cycle, what we are talking about. So anthropogenic disturbance such as forest conversion, harvest, and fire that increase the proportion of nutrient pool that is available, therefore vulnerable to loss from the ecosystem. That is what we are talking about in the human process. We are going to some of these losses occur by leaching of dissolved elements to groundwater, causing a depletion of soil cations, increase in soil acidity, increase in nutrient inputs to aquatic ecosystem. So gases classes from nitrogen influences the chemical radiative properties of the atmosphere, causing air pollution, enhancing the greenhouse effect. So when we are give interference, are we involved in that natural process? What happened is, all the compartments are interrelated. That like combustion of fossil fuel, use of fertilizer, and cultivation of nitrogen fixing crops. That is an example of we are trying to intervene human in that natural process of nutrient cycle, of natural process of cycle, by giving more input for producing more output. And what is that is the impact what we are getting. Thus, the ecosystem function through the process of first energy flow, then production process, then decomposition happen, then nutrient cycling is happening. And a natural process, after that, succession follow. That is, if humans do not interfere in that, then through this process, the natural process of succession follows. That is sequential change in community structure that finally gives to stable climax community. Here you will see from the bare rocks, through natural mosses and lichen grows and form soil when they die. And in the process, what we are talking about, decomposition happen in the process. Then soil develop, soil thickness, trees start to grow, and in that different, with trees start, different microorganisms will come, the birds will come. In that way, ecological primary succession happen, then secondary succession happen. This is the natural process. Next, what we need to understand is what is ecosystem. That how this ecosystem function is related to that ecosystem services. We know that through that process of that gives a number of services. That is, we know the services we are the processes that follow. That is what we're talking about, neutral cycling, what we're talking about the structure of ecosystem, the process of decomposition, process of nutrient cycling. This is the services, ecosystem services. How it is related to human well-being. The human is coupling to nature system, and we reorganize the natural system. And human system also, we have internal interaction, what we're talking about ecology. The natural system also, in their own way, we have seen that they interact. And today, we need to look to the natural to human coupling system. That is what we're talking about, services by the ecosystem. That is ecosystem services, right? So this ecosystem services, some of the description by some of the, when I look into some of the important, some of the latest publication, means in the sense that we can look from the lens of sustainability is how the relationship among ecosystem element and processes look into. For example, structure and the composition of ecosystem, what it gives? It gives to natural elements like natural biodiversity, land, Now, what we are talking about water here. Then if you look to from social human well-being point of view, socio-cultural elements is also given. That cultural biodiversity, domestic stock, humans, other, whatever we construct, roads, building, cars, these are in the under structure and composition of ecosystem. In the process, it redistributes all the structure and the composition of ecosystem is, redistributed from one compartment to another compartment in the process. That's we're talking about that process is water cycle, neutral cycle, carbon cycle, energy cycle, and regulation of disease in the pest organism naturally or by our intervention. Photosynthesis is the first and foremost cycle, air regulation, flood regulation, social process, economic process. Then and now through our intervention and for our well-being, we develop a new structure and composition of ecosystem. So it has been widely recognized that ecosystem are the planet's life support system. Nature gives us goods and services, which is the ultimate foundation of life for the human species and for all the living beings. And the biological human needs, food, water, clean air, shelter, and the relative climatic constancy. And this is what we get from the ecosystem. All these resources are directly and that is from directly or indirectly from the ecosystem or nature. So changes in the flow of these services affect whatever we're talking about, the structure, function of the ecosystem. If some small changes in that flow of services in the structure of the component that affect health, livelihood, income, migration, and political affairs of human society. And if you look into that impact on our human well-being, then what are ecosystem services? Ecosystem services are the condition and the processes through which natural ecosystem and species that make them up sustain and fulfill human life. That are ecosystem goods, what we're getting as a good, that like food, services, what we're getting like how waste is recycled by itself, that represent the benefit of human population that are directly or indirectly from the ecosystem function. So it can look into four types. The provision, it is given that regulation that supports the and that's also from the perspective of culture. So it can be looked into four types: provisioning, regulating, supporting, cultural services. How this concept of ecosystem services evolved, let us have a quick look into that before looking into details of those ecosystem services concept. This is based on the review by Arthur Chaudhary et al. Now you will see key factor based on article citation, some pre-1997. The term ecosystem was first used in 1981. And 1997, before that, ecology was born in 70s, 60s, 70s, economics and impact assessment was started in 70s and 80s. So in that time, they started to think about ecosystem services. So 1997, national interest in ecosystem services started. From 1997 to 2000, number of publications come up that discuss about different ecosystem services. Some of the authors are Costanza and others. Some of the international organizations involved in that, they talk about in the terms of ecosystem service assessment, agriculture, history, hydrology. Then at last, global common effort is Millennium Ecosystem Assessment was officially launched in 2001. That's global interest in ecosystem services. So, after that, a number of, after MEA, Millennium Ecosystem Services, ecosystem report, then now it reached 5 global outlook and others. So in that way, then the concept of ecosystem services evolved. At last in 2010, establishment of IPBS improved. So in that way, now different organization is working and reporting about value of ecosystem services. This is about how the concept was evolved. So whatever the types of core services, if you look into the terms services, that provisioning services of food we are getting, fiber, genetic resources, biochemical, natural medicine, ornamental resources, fresh water, like, whatever day-to-day in the form of the provision we are getting, that is provision services. Regulating services is, why we are talking about and cultivate the planting more plants and making more greenery is it regulates, it ecosystem plays an important roles in regulating services, that it regulates air quality, it regulates climate, as water regulation, erosion regulation, because this is regulation, pest regulation, pollination. Then cultural services, if you look into the ecosystem, diversity in culture is directly related to the kind of ecosystem exists here. So this is what this is one of the cultural services given by the ecosystem, because the culture in a desert ecosystem, culture of a human culture in a desert ecosystem is different from that of a mountain ecosystem. Then we have spiritual religious values like sacred grove and others, recreation and ecotourism, aesthetic value. Then you will find a number of traditional knowledge system that is available, available from the ecosystem. The educational values also, we learn a number of, education, the natural law, then supporting services like soil formation, photosynthesis, primary production, nutrient cycling, water cycling. This is what we're talking about, ecosystem structure and function. This we categorize this in aids and ecosystem services. This is simplified structure of delivering ecosystem services. You will see here how sunlight, rainfall, soil, nutrient formation, atmosphere directly gives to the last column, that is recreation, natural environment, environmental benign through building, environmentally benign temperature that gives through spiritual, intrinsic, potable water, then food for domestic consumption. So this is also one of the example of ecosystem processes and ecosystem services. The ecosystem processes, soil formation, nutrient cycling, primary production, pollination, biomass. These are the ecosystem processes in the ecosystem. Then final ecosystem services, what we are getting from that services is soil formation, nutrient cycling, we are getting clean water provision, and then from pollination, you will got crops, we are getting crops, from primary production of biomass, all these, we will got trees, water regulation is there. Then as a good, with other capital inputs, we are getting drinking water, cereal, milk, etc., timber, wild bird species, flood protection. So in that way, what are our values, plus, minus, that you will see in the that explanation in this. You will, how, when you talk about human being, then we already studied about the basic concept of human well-being in the, when we talk about the last course, when we were talking about basic human needs. So we know in one thing we have, in one column we have ecosystem services. Another, what are the determinants are constituted of human well-being? When we talk about the human needs or human well-being, It is about our own security. Basic material for a good life, health, good social relation. So how this ecosystem services is directly or indirectly related to this determinant and constituent of human well-being. We'll see in the provisioning services what product obtain are food, fresh water, fuel, fiber, biochemical, genetic resources. It gives basic material for good and life, for a good life, ability to access resources, to earn income and gain a livelihood. So the point is that this services is directly related to your well-being. If some, if you, if something's, I mean, if there is some changes in those ecosystem services or ecosystem processes that directly affect to our well-being, this is we have to understand from the lens of sustainability. And this also another important point what we need to look is when you talk about natural capital means ecosystem service, ecosystem. We usually say assume that okay, we have this much natural capital, automatically we will get human well-being. No, so it has to be this human well-being, the human well-being. We got our well-being from the natural capital through the process of ecosystem services, through the process of ecosystem structure, function, and so on. Right, that relation we have to understand. So we have to maintain the ecosystem services. So this is also one of the example, ecosystem integrity for the provision of other ecosystem services, that provision services that are interrelated. Regulating services and cultural services, they are interrelated each other, and this also directly related to human well-being. So if we disturb any of the services, it affects to other services, means other component. So we have to understand this relation. So these are some of the reference sets which I use, and most of these photos are from Creative Commons. So with this, we can have a quick discussion. So let us have